Have you ever wanted to find that elusive, perfect art journal that 100% suits your creative needs? If so, you may want to consider making your own. However, that can feel a little bit overwhelming when we consider how many different bookbinding styles there are, etc., etc., and we may be a little bit put off. So today we are breaking it down. We are taking it down into simple steps using stuff that you already have to create yourself the perfect art journal. Shall we just get started? One of the advantages of making your own journal is that you can make it specific to what you enjoy doing as an artist or crafter. So you can see I've pulled out a selection of papers there. I've chosen myself the Canson mixed media paper. Also, I have the Caddy 100% cotton because I've fallen in love with that journal just recently. I put a pastel paper in there because pastels became my obsession last year. Who knew that would happen? And the Ohuhu marker paper because it has some sort of magical properties that means that it doesn't bleed through, which would be cool in a journal. So the other thing that I like about making my own journal, and I've been so excited, this one has been in my head for so long, I'm so excited to be finally making it, is that you can use it in the amounts that you like. Like, I love working on different substrates, and I have bought many journals that have mixed papers and substrates within them. But I always find the percentages of those don't work well for me. Like, I like working on craft card or black card or burlap or fabric. It's a nice novelty, but not for how often it's in that book. I tend to reach for the mixed media paper or the watercolor paper more. So that's why in this, each signature has 2 mixed media papers, 2 of the Caddy 100 cotton papers, 1 of the pastel, and 1 of the alcohol marker. And I know that that's a balance that will really work for me, and that's about how often I will use everything in there. And so this will fit my needs. I'm not going to finish part of it and then there's going to be big chunks of substrates that I'm not as attracted to. You just finally see me get some copier paper. The reason that we are doing that and putting it on the outside of each signature is because of the binding style that we are using, and I don't want to waste my good papers. Now, to bind, you need some form of soft mat. I actually have one, but any sort of foam will work. You need some bulldog clips, some thread. I just happen to be using embroidery thread because I've got loads of it in my stash, and a candle because I don't have waxed thread, but you can kind of make your own waxed thread using a candle. So that's what we are going to do here. So I'm just using the supplies I have rather than going out and buying specialist supplies. So I'm using the bulldog clip just to hold my signatures in place so that they don't move and go a bit wonky donkey during the stitching process, which I have done on journals before and it bothers me. So yes, now I clip it nicely in place. I am cutting myself a length of the embroidery thread. I've divided it in 2 because embroidery thread comes in 6 strands and I only want the width to be about 3. And I'm pulling it tight against this candle and just pulling it along, and that's getting wax on the thread. That now works like wax thread, and we have saved ourselves a small fortune by buying the specialist equipment. Thankfully, because we're on camera, we managed to thread that first time. And with this particular style of binding, we don't need to measure, which is amazing. So I'm just putting a hole roughly in the middle and roughly either side. I have always wanted to make myself a multi-signature journal, and I haven't done so until January 1st of this year. And that's when I discovered this type of binding, which honestly takes all measuring out of it, and it just makes it so much more accessible to make these kind of journals myself. So this is a really beginner friendly style tutorial. Don't worry, we are going to go through what I've just done there a second time, and I will talk you through exactly what I have done. But you can see there, it's not too difficult. So once I cut that, I'll talk you through exactly what we just did. So we're going to put a hole in the center and then a hole either side, approximately, and I've put it at those measurements so that I'm holding my marker paper in, which is a bit smaller. So we go in through the center and then out down through the bottom, then we go back through the center, and then we take the thread on the outside of the signature, come in and at the bottom, and then we're just going to tuck it under the thread that's there so it's all connected, and then do 2 or 3 knots. It is really really simple. Believe me, I wanted to make journals for years and years and years and was so put off because it seemed so technical. So if I can do this, anyone can. Now I repeat this for all 5 signatures. And now I am going to do this fancy binding. So I've made a journal at the beginning of the year using an old planner, and I did it with fabric, and I completely fell in love with it and wanted to repeat it. So I am using fabric here, but you could just as easily use any of your designer papers, or you could use paper that you've splashed with watercolor. You can use anything really. What I'm doing is just creating little strips to go down the spine of each individual signature. So I'm using gel medium here. I would highly recommend a gel medium. You want a nice strong glue because obviously this is going to be your journal. It's going to take some abuse. It's going to be carried here, there and everywhere and have daily use. We want it to hold together. So I'm just getting the fabric, pulling that tight and then letting that dry. And I'm just doing that down the spine of each signature. So don't worry, I'm not showing you that all. I'm just trying to show you enough time so that you can clearly see what it is that we are doing. Once they are dried, I had left them for a good few hours. I'm just neatening up the extra fabric. I wanted to kind of make sure that there was plenty in case there was any movement through the drying process. And then this is what I meant why I wanted the cheap copier paper, because we are essentially going to lose the paper of these spines. So if that had been my lovely expensive mixed media paper, or you know, I would have been quite upset at having lost so many of those pages. But cheap copier paper, that's fine. We're literally just going to have one of each side to work on, which is still fun to work on. And we have preserved our expensive paper. So again, loads of gel medium on here because we want it to last, we want it to stick. And this I love because the measuring, there's no measuring. We're not trying to measure the holes into a spine and put all the holes in, we're just gluing them together. When I discovered this technique, as I said, it has just made journal making so much more accessible. The other thing with gel medium is you do get a little bit of wiggle room. So I did have time to manipulate the pages and I really kind of pushed them together as well as I could. I do in a minute also put them under a pile of books. Also, I was so excited to be making this journal that for some reason I've left my computer mouse in practically every shot. So I do apologise for that. I'm now cutting myself some grey board. I happen to have inherited a whole pile of grey board, but if you don't have that in your stash, your sketchbooks like we used just at the beginning all come with a backing of grey board. Just take the grey board from that to make your journals. So you'll most likely have something that you can use, or even packaging from a cereal box. As I said, I just happen to be using what I have. I also used to work in a fabric shop and I used to sew. I started sewing at the age of 13. It's not something I do very often now, but I still have boxes of little fabric scraps and fat quarters that I've picked up. Hence why I am using fabric on this. But again, this could be paper or any form of card, sort of mixed media. And I'm taking a very messy sewing style here. I'm just stitching it all on so that you can see the stitches. I deliberately frayed the fabric. I just wanted there to be a lot of texture and interest. Once I've done that, I am getting the grey board. And once again, we are going to pull out that magic ingredient, which is gel medium. Now, the grey board does seem to absorb, as you can see, the gel medium pretty fast. So you do need to be very, very generous with this. So I did this in 2 stages. I placed the main part down like this for both of the pieces. Then once I had done that, I put them under a pile of books for a couple of hours for them to set before I moved on to the next stage. The next stage, I am just snipping in to the corners and then pasting these down. As I said, you can sew if you want to, but you don't need to. I'm addicted to making journals now, so I'm sure you're going to I'm sure you're going to see multiple ways of doing this. So if you are interested in bookbinding and making your own journal, stay tuned. I'm already in the process of making another one with a slightly different theme. So yeah, so I am just neatening this down and putting the corners down with some glue. Or not glue, gel medium. The reason I love gel medium is it literally sticks anything to anything, and because it's a gel, it expands and contracts with moisture in the air. So it works much better than your paper glues or your hot glues even.
So we get there. It's a bit messy, but it does the trick. Now I have these strands. I actually cut these off a dress. I ordered a dress from Joe Bounds, gorgeous dress. I still have it, but I hated these ties. You know, I'm a woman of a certain age. I don't need these thin, strange ties round my waist. But I'm like, they would look nice on a craft project, so I squirreled them away. And now I'm sandwiching those down. Sorry about the head, it did need a bit of pressure, so I had to get above it to push that down. So we have that, and then once again, that is set under books to dry, and then we come in with the main magic of editing. So I've just come in straight away with the signatures, and again we have got loads of gel medium. Now because that grey board does seem to really absorb the gel medium, I've put it on both the grey board and the back of the journal. Now at this point I realised I had made a bit of a mistake, and I had made my grey board too small. So I actually think the pieces that I'd cut for the inside I'd accidentally used for the tops, and then yeah, I did wonder why my insert pieces were a bit wide. I'd actually had to cut them down. But anyway, I think it's okay because we've got that really decorated spine and we brought the spine in. The fact that a little bit of it's exposed, it just looks like part of the design. But that is what is so good about this style of making journals, is that there's so much wiggle room and room for error and mistakes. You can still sort of make it work. So that was a mistake, but no one would ever know. As you can see, we have that under a tower of books, and I left that for about 24 hours before I came in and had a check of what the finished journal is like. I love it. It is so textured and gorgeous. I love the ties, and yeah, and I love the way it's kind of, because of the way the spine works, the journal lays flat as well. So we've got all those gorgeous papers full of potential to do lots of art journaling in. So desperate to use it, so we are going to complete one page together, just a nice simple page. I have pulled out a stencil. This is Picnic Rose, and I'm using a combination of a pink and orange oxide. I'm getting in a stamp just to put a little bit of detail down. Do you know what? I love the page at this stage. The direction it went in, I didn't overly fall in love with at the end, but at that stage it was lovely. But that's what a journal's for. It's about experimenting and learning. So I put a bit of book paper down. There was a bit of scrap of card in my collection, so I just mounted that and popped that in, and then I'm going to stamp over it with this stamp. It's not my normal stamping block, and I'm not used to this journal yet, so I didn't stamp it overly accurately, but thankfully I had chosen to colour this in with acrylic markers, and acrylic markers do just cover a multitude of sins. They are amazing for covering many mistakes. I think that's possibly why they have become one of my top favourite products to use. And then I'm using my thin gel pens just to add a little bit of outlining, and that's where we bring it all back, and you can't notice that the stamping was a little bit dodgy. There's always a fix around, and I think the journal is the best place to learn those fix arounds. I still wasn't loving it, so I took the same pink that we had used with the stenciling and tried to add it to the back of the piece. I added a little sentiment. I still wasn't loving it, so I thought I would do some splashes, but I couldn't be bothered getting my black ink out, so I just did some faux splashes with the acrylic paint marker and sort of randomly tried to dot. And there is my first page of this journal. I hope you have enjoyed and that you will stay tuned for a lot more inspiration.
I absolutely love it. Thank you so much for joining me as I have made this gorgeous art journal. I cannot wait to use it. If you're going to make one, what sort of papers would you put in yours? I would love to know. Let me know in the comments below, and I will be back next Friday with lots more inspiration. Take care, and I'll see you then. Bye.